Let's just round off this little description of how to use PLS. Just some final remarks here. One relating to classification that we just talked about. We didn't really talk about what to do when you have many classes. But let's say, for example, that you have 3 classes, and maybe you call them 1, 2, 3. Now, you cannot use a vector containing numbers like that for building classification models normally. What you have to do is that you have to encode it as a dummy variable. So you make one class for all your class 1, for all your class 2, and for all your class 3, each of them being binary 0s and 1s. And essentially that means that when you classify, you're going to have 3 different models, one for classifying class 1, class 2, and class 3, etc. So you're going to end up with a PLS2 model predicting 3 different things, for example. And if you had 5 classes, you would end up with 5 variables like that. In general, not just for classification, but any use of PLS, it's important to be aware how PLS is used when you apply it on new data. So when you apply a PLS model to a new data set, what you have to do first, well, it's handled by the software. You have to pre-process the data. That could be centering and scaling, and also more advanced stuff in some cases. And you have to do that with the centering and scaling that you found during your calibration. So not the actual, not calculating them again from the test set. That wouldn't make sense. So you have to use the pre-processing parameters that you found during calibration. Then you can predict using your regression vector from the pre-processed data. But then you also have to remember that you're not actually predicting Y. Let's say you use centering on Y. Then what you're really predicting is the centered Y. So of course, after that, you have to add the offset again. So you have to de-process your predictions. And you can do outlier diagnostics using the Q and the T squared values for the new samples. For the new samples, you won't know the actual Y value, so you can't use prediction error, of course. But you still have the Q and T indicating whether the new X data are strange compared to your calibration data. And you should always check that before you actually do the prediction. I've talked a little bit about PLS Toolbox here because that's the software I'm using, but there are many other nice types of software available, most notably Unscrambler and Simca, which you can find at the links given here. And there's also a nice description of different software packages, many more software packages than mentioned here, which I would recommend you to check out. Finally, I'm just going to give you some links to some different books. One is in Danish, so that's not so useful, but these are nice books for understanding a little bit about basic statistics and chemometrics. And there's also some papers here that might come in useful. Kind of old, but many of them has very nice descriptions. And with that, I think we're done with PLS for now.